I don't know if there's sporting events that are going to be allowed in schools. We don't seem to be allowing them in the public at large. So I don't know if that's going to be allowed. I don't know if you have a social cohort where you're doing your hockey outside of school, if you're going to be allowed to participate in a social cohort in school. So these are some of the considerations people have to say. These are some of the issues that have been raised with me from parents. Another person says, my kids will 100%. We are going back to the classroom. Well, let's see what we're hearing from my next guest. And we'll also talk to Lisa Davis as well. But the main thing is that the opportunity to sign up for at-home learning, you got to make your decision today. And I believe you're locked into the decision that you make until February, at which point you can make a different choice. Some people have been asking me, what's the difference between signing up for Hub Learning through the Calgary Board of Education or the Calgary Catholic Board versus signing up for homeschooling and doing it independently? Well, we'll talk to Judy Arnall to discuss that. She is president of the Alberta Homeschooling Association and joins us now to talk it through. Judy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So tell us what is different about homeschooling versus hub schooling, which the school boards are offering. Because I think people are sort of thinking, well, maybe I still want to be tied to my particular school board. Maybe I don't want to just cut it completely and go homeschooling. Give us an idea of the difference between the two.
Okay, first of all, there's no such term as homeschooling in Alberta education. It's called home education. Okay. And that's the only program where parents direct or lead the program. The difference is that parents can decide whatever they want to teach. There's funding for them for reimbursable expenses, and children can still get diplomas on the program, but there's no tests or attendance requirements. It's parents decide everything. They're in charge.
Okay, and what is the amount of money? I've been hoping that the government would boost the amount to make it more affordable, because curriculum is expensive, but I don't think they've made that decision to. But tell us how much the parents get for each child that they decide to home educate.
Well, parents get $850 per child per year to offset the cost of supplies, lessons, things like that. The school authority also gets funding for supervising the home education program, and it can be the public schools, the charters, the Catholic schools, or an independent school that supervises the program.
Does every parent who signs up for home education have to have a relationship with a public charter or independent school?
They don't have to. New this year is they can notify directly with the government and not receive funding or receive any supervision or help. But we're finding parents this year they're totally new to home education. They need a lot of hand-holding and support, and they need funding. So we're encouraging them to go back to their school board and say, I want to do parent-led home education.
Okay, so this is what I'm trying to understand, is if you choose the hub option where you begin to virtual school right from the get-go, are you still going to get that $850? Will the school boards acknowledge it as a home education program so that you can get the resources to help, or does all the money for your child go to the school board that's offering the virtual learning?
Yeah, and that's the big difference. Is there are two programs in Alberta education. There's home education, which is totally parent-controlled and gets funding. What you're talking about, the hub, what Calgary Catholic, what Calgary Board of Ed, Edmonton are all putting out is distance education. So it's not so much of where the learning takes place, it's a matter of who controls it. So the only parent-controlled program is home education. Everything else, whether it's called at-home learning or home-based learning, or even some school boards are calling it homeschooling, that is distance education and no funding. That is school, but in your living room. And you as a parent are not the teacher of those programs. You are the homework enforcer.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, here's the thing. I can understand why there wouldn't be additional funding flowing through, because if you don't have to go online and buy curriculum and do the marking yourself, then maybe there's less need to compensate. But give me an idea of how expensive, if you decide that you're going to just do the virtual distance programming and not be responsible for choosing your own curriculum. If you decide that to go that route, fine, you're not going to get resources. But if you get the $850, how far does that go towards covering the cost of all of the additional supplies and access to resources that you're going to need? Is it a lot? Are a lot of patients or parents going to be out of pocket, or can you make it work for $850?
Um, some parents can make it work, especially if they've been doing this for years and have lots of kids. Um, but if you're starting out, and especially for parents with children in high school, those textbooks are $170 a pop. It does not go far enough. The other thing, too, is parents do not have to teach under home education. They can outsource to tutors, freelance teachers, online a la carte courses from other countries, and those things cost money. So, no, it doesn't cover anybody's home education, everything they need. They definitely do have to dip out of pocket. And we're always saying parents should get a tax credit for the money they do, because they save public schools a lot of money. I homeschooled my 5 children, and I've saved taxpayers over $500,000 because
Wow.
we don't fund parents to teach. We fund teachers to teach under distance education.
Less than talk about your experience about, even though over the course of your 5 kids that you may have broken even, although it sounds like you probably put in a lot more resources. What's the benefit of doing that? Like, why would somebody be prepared to pay more money for their kids' education than choosing one of the other options where they don't have to pay at all?
Well, parents have their children's best interest in mind, and a lot of parents have children with special needs that they can better meet at home. And, they want their children to get a diploma, but have a more meaningful education, especially a hands-on education, where they're not online all the time, they're not in front of a screen. And they choose home education because it's much more flexible. They can personalize it to children. And all children can get a diploma under home education programs. And it takes about 1/10 of the time as school. It's so much more efficient. So
Talk about that actually, because I
pay.
think that's such an advantage, especially for those who have large families and want to be able to do other activities with their families. Why is it less time intensive? Tell us what your experience was.
Well, it takes much less time, because I use the dinner party analogy that if you're having 30 people over for dinner, think of the time it takes to plan and execute and clean up. Whereas if you're just having dinner with your one child, it takes way less time. And that's what home education parents find. As well, too, it's more socially diverse because children get out in the community. We don't stay at home. We get out there and we socialize with all kinds of people, ages, backgrounds. It's a much more personalized experience.
What did you find about issue of sports? Because I think that that's one of the attractions for. I've talked to homeschool families who send their kids back to school once they get into high school, for instance. How did you did I don't know if your kids were athletic. Did you fill the gap in a different way?
Yes, we just outsource to the rec centers because home education gets funding. The business community has stepped up and offered daytime sports programs. And we even had a daytime Girl Guide Boy Scout program. They are stepping up to meet a need of parents wanting these activities for the children through the day.
One other thing, for kids who are looking at going to university, is there any deficiency in a homeschool diploma that has to be corrected before they can go on to university, or have they worked out the whether they're synchronized?
So if a child does home education all the way up to grade 12, they can very much personalize their education. But everybody writes the same diploma exams. We do not write PATs. There's no testing. There's no attendance on home ed. But everybody needs diploma exams for marks and credits. So they get a diploma exam mark, and that's what they present to post-secondaries when they apply. So no one knows they've been home educated or not. It just has a school code on the transcript.
All right. Now, for parents who are thinking, I can't do this, it's going to cost me more money, it's going to be too time intensive, I don't know, I wasn't good at, I don't know, name it, spelling in school or math in school or science in school, I don't think I could teach the full curriculum. What would you say to give them some confidence?
I would say kids are going to learn whether you teach them or not. And I think that's a big worry this year is parents don't want their kids to get behind. So they're feeling forced to sign up for online or in classroom. And yet we've laid it out for them. There's step-by-step curriculum for them on our website. And that kids are going to keep learning. And by age 13, they actually surpass parents' knowledge, and they have research skills. They learn things on the internet or through the library, and they just keep going, and they can get everything they need for post-secondary admittance through home education. Don't worry.
One last question is people are worried that if I sign up for Homeschool now, get the $850, sever my relationship with the board, if it's not working out for me, I won't be able to send my kid back to school in February. Is that a choice that people have to make?
Not at all. Every public school board has to accept children in their boundaries. And whether they come from home education or come from out of province, they have to accept them. So parents, you can do this for a year, you can do it for half a year, you can change programs. The only thing is if parents do not sign up for home education by September 30th, that's the deadline, they lose their funding. But they can still put their kids back into school. And
Judy,
there's no testing.
Beautiful. Okay, tell us what the best way is for people to see the online curriculum so that they can get the confidence and be able to make the choice. What is your website so people can follow along?
It's albertahomeschooling.ca, and you want to look under the How to Homeschool tab.
Awesome. Have you seen a big uptick in parents wanting to do it?
Oh my gosh, huge.
Can you quantify it so we have some idea?
Well, last year there was about 11,000 home education registrants in the province. This year, our Facebook group has over 8,000 people already, and school hasn't even started yet.
All right. Well, we'll make sure that we check in with you throughout the school year. Thank you so much for giving us the guide. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. That's Judy Arnall, president of the Alberta Homeschooling Davis, about what she thinks about what the hub learning is going to look like. Stay with us. We'll be